Path of the Pole by Charles Hapgood, Part 10. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Elbrus Plateau. First of all, we apologize for the lateness of this episode. Not really our fault.
Ice storms in Texas.
Yes, February ice storms. So I was kind of trapped in the tower for 3 days, and so we're just now getting to recording this week's episode, so it's going to be coming out very late. Sorry about that. But we are going back to Path of the Pole this week. More exciting stuff. It's like this part 10, but it's worth it, guys. Getting here.
Stick with us.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff in the latter part of this book. I mean, the beginning part there's a lot of good stuff there too, but some of it was pretty dense. But this is really great.
Yeah. Well, before we get into that, I want to. I have just something I want to talk about. This situation with Malcolm Bindle, Randall, and this supposed free energy or whatever. Because Russ and I are associated with Randall, and Randall's, pursuing this thing with Malcolm, we haven't said anything about it. It's not our business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are asking us, people are suggesting we do all sorts of things. So I just want to tell you guys that I don't know if his inventions work. We have never seen a working prototype. It's kind of unclear if there is one.
Yeah.
I've been told.
Well, I mean, we did get to hang out with him a bit when they all came to Texas. And he definitely was telling me then about hooking it up to a generator.
Yeah, they're like testing it and doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think here's the bottom line for me. I don't understand the diagrams and things written about it and whatever. I can't make sense of all that. So there's nothing to say about that. We did get a chance to talk with Bindle, and it's interesting listening to him describe what's going on. But in my head, I'm wondering, how could he possibly have the instrumentation to measure the things he's claiming is happening?
Yeah.
I didn't ask that question because it seems like he has a theory, and he's just describing it.
Yeah.
And even that didn't really make sense to me. So for me, it's all about, we'll wait until we see a prototype that's working, right? Like, wait until the car drives up that's getting 90% more efficiency or whatever it is. So that's where I'm at. And beyond that, it's none of my business.
Yeah.
What's going on.
Yeah. He was an interesting guy.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Totally skeptical about it, but also supportive of people who have interesting ideas and want to pursue them. That's great.
Yeah.
I have not done any research. A lot of people are talking trash. I haven't looked into the guy specifically. I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care. All I care about is, does the physics check out? Does it work? That's really what matters. And we
Not
just
even
don't know.
the physics, like, can he produce a working something?
Well, yeah, that's it.
And then we can check the physics, right? If
what's actually happening?
Yeah, like, what is actually going on in this thing?
That's what I mean.
That does stuff. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
And there's plenty of, like, even if it does work, that doesn't mean it's going to change the world instantly, right? It's just that there's all kinds of hurdles. Like, you have to make sure it's safe. Like, can people use it for long periods of time?
Yeah, does it blow up your car after 5 years?
Yeah.
We don't know.
And
Nobody knows.
we're specifically talking about the modification to an internal combustion engine that he's mentioned.
Right.
Like
Of
not
course,
all
there's
the other
power
stuff.
plant
yeah,
ideas,
There's power
all-
plants and just like turbines
Yeah.
and all kinds of other
The
things.
other thing I got to say is people saying it's free energy.
It's not.
It's not free.
Yeah.
Like, that's been really annoying.
Yeah.
No one, well, I don't know if people are claiming it's free, but it's not free.
Yeah.
If you build a power plant that has some new technology, like if they figure out cold fusion, you still have to transmit the power.
Yeah.
It's not free.
It's not free. And you got to build the stuff.
You have to
Yeah.
build the power plant. You
Yeah.
have to maintain it. We've been over this. So that's annoying. Stop.
Stop asking where the free energy is.
Yeah, ask where the cheaper energy is.
Yeah.
That's a better question. Where's
Yeah.
the cheaper
Where's
energy?
the more efficient
Where's
stuff?
the more efficient things coming? I don't know. We don't know, and we're not nosy. So I'm not blowing up Randall's phone trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. We had several discussions with Randall about this.
He brought it up
Yeah.
and talked to us about it. We looked at what he showed us, and we discussed it with him. Eventually I told him about my skepticism. We had a conversation about that on Cosmographia. I don't know if that episode's come out yet. But
Was it on the show or after
well,
the show?
I started, bitching and moaning in the break. And then we had this, back and forth about it,
Oh, yeah.
this heated argument.
Yeah. And then
And
we
I
started,
totally won. I kicked his ass, folks. No, I'm just kidding. But when we started the show back up, Randall immediately brought it up. He was like, we were having a discussion during the break, and he had me basically just lay out my point quickly.
That's right.
And
You're right.
so we did talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that show's out yet. That was before
Probably
they hit
not.
the road.
Yeah.
And Brad's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
In any case, my position is I'm skeptical, but I'm open to the possibility that he may have an actual, like, legit invention that works. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And there's no proof yet.
Yeah.
So I'm just leaving it at that.
That's right.
And I'm definitely not getting worked up about it. And I'm not getting worked up about free energy.
Not getting worked up about it.
Hell no. Yeah, I am getting worked up about it. I'm getting worked up about people freaking out about free energy.
Yeah. Okay.
The sun is free.
Is it?
Yeah.
No? There are costs. The sun is a deadly laser. In case you didn't know.
It comes all the way here for free. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. We ready for the book?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
ready
you,
for the
folks.
book.
Thanks
Yeah.
for putting up with that.
Yep. Stop asking us questions about it. We don't know.
For those of you in the Discord, I was not yelling at you.
Okay. So, the discoveries of vast quantities of animal remains in almost every part of South America have invariably been made in recent formations. As long ago as 1887, Sir Henry H. Haworth, in his monumental work The Mammoth and the Flood, an enlarged version of an earlier paper dated in 1881, summarized our knowledge of these beds as follows. In South America, the Pleistocene beds are developed on a very large scale. They cover plains of the Argentine Republic in the form of modified lem or loess, to which the name Pampas mud was given by Darwin, and formation Pampine by D'Orbigny. In other places, they exist in the form of beds of gravel and clay, and occasionally as beds of tufa. As in Europe and North America, we also meet with caverns of Pleistocene age, many of which have been explored in Brazil by Lund, Clausen, Bavard, and Leis. The distribution of these beds is exceedingly widespread over South America. According to Burmeister, they are richest in organic remains in the province of Buenos Aires, becoming less rich as we travel westward and northward. Rich deposits of this age have also been found in the Banda Oriental at various points on the river Paraná and at Barreiro in Patagonia. Burmeister says the diluvial deposit containing bones of animals of this age extends over the whole Brazilian plain, from the flanks of the Cordilleras to the borders of the Atlantic. They have also been found abundantly in Bolivia, on the Great Plateau, and also west of the mountains in both Peru and Chile. From Caracas in the north to the Sierra of Tandil in Patagonia to the south, they have in fact occurred in more or less abundance over the whole continent. In the Great Argentine Plain, they are found close to the sea level, while in Bolivia they occur at a height of 4,000 meters, and they are found with a singular similarity, if not uniformity, of contents in all latitudes. That's crazy. Sea level all the way up to 4,000 meters, and it's basically the same kind of material and bones spread out over basically the entire, that the surface bed of the pampas and the deposits in the caves were synchronous.
And they're saying it's diluvial deposits?
Diluvial is what he says.
So does that mean flood deposits? What does that mean? Watch out.
I thought it meant rainfall.
Diluvial?
Oh,
that's pluvial.
Of or relating to a flood or floods.
Okay. Deluge.
Yeah, as in antediluvial. Yeah.
So from sea level to 4,000 feet, it was floods.
Yeah.
Depositing all this stuff. That's wild.
Yes, and it's Pleistocene stuff. So that the surface beds of the pampas and the deposits in the caves were synchronous is admitted by all explorers. The same creatures are found in both, of course in different proportions, as is the case elsewhere. Nor is there any doubt that both sets of beds date from the same horizon as the mammoth beds of other countries. The fauna of the Pleistocene beds of the southern states of North America is, in fact, largely identical with that from the beds we are now discussing. The megatherium and mylodon, the tapir and the capybara, the mastodon and the horse, etc., being found in both, and every observer from Darwin to Burmeister is agreed in assigning them to the same horizon. So no matter the level, whatever, it's basically the same animals and the same time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Historically, the bones of the Pleistocene mammals, especially those of the larger genera, were noticed in South America soon after the Spanish conquest. Curious theories were advanced by the early discoverers to explain the presence of these bones, usually by reference to a race of giants who were supposed to have anciently inhabited various parts of the New World. Among the earliest reports is that of Pedro de Cieza de Leon, who wrote, "When the most illustrious Don Antonio de Mendoza was viceroy and governor of New Spain, he found certain bones of men who must have been even larger than these giants." That's interesting. Which giants is he comparing these bones to?
I don't know.
I thought that was strange. So they're basically saying that he's talking about the bones of mammoths or whatever, but he's saying that they were even larger than these other giants. Cieza traveled through Peru and the adjacent lands from 1532 to 1550. A contemporary, Agustin de Zarate, probably referred to the same discovery when he mentioned that Juan del Homos, a native of, how do you say that? Something, excavating near that place, exhumed enormous teeth, a huge rib, and other bones, all of which were, of course, assigned to the legendary giants. So I just want to stop and say the other thing, since we were mentioning, them coming to Texas and us getting to hang out with Bendel, that we did was we went to the bone bed that we talked about with George. Yeah. And I can't possibly see how somebody could look at a mammoth tooth, which we got to see and hold, and think that that's a person's tooth. It looks nothing like a person's tooth.
Nor the mastodon tooth.
They don't
so
look anything
weird.
like,
Yeah.
I don't even think, unless you were like an expert, that you would think that was a tooth. It looks more like a cave formation than a tooth, right?
Sure.
So the idea that
if it was sticking out of a jawbone.
Yeah.
But still.
But even then, it's like this.
And it's just like two big teeth.
Right.
So to think that would be some kind of a human features.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like that's a lazy explanation, that they were like finding mammoth teeth and thinking these were giant bones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe they just misunderstood him.
Could be.
Like, they were giant bones.
Yeah.
So then the story spread.
Right. So this guy exhumes enormous teeth, a huge rib, and other bones, all of which were, of course, assigned to the legendary giants. Joseph de Acosta recorded only a little later the discovery of similarly large bones at Puerto Viejo and Manta in Ecuador. Some very large mammalian bones, among other finds recorded throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, were described by Father Guevara in 1770 as occurring in the Paraguayan districts of Argentina and Paraguay itself. 4 years later, the Jesuit father Thomas Falconer referred to the discovery on the banks of the Carcaranan or Tercero River of numerous large bones, some of which evidently belonged to a gigantic species of fossil armadillo. Falconer's description is the earliest we have of this creature's existence. About 1789, the greater part of the skeleton of an enormous unknown animal, which science was later to identify as the megatherium, was found near Luján, some 9 miles west of Buenos Aires in Argentina. This skeleton was sent to Madrid, where incidentally it still is. A Danish scholar published the first scientific notice of it in 1793. In 1795, M. Room published a longer account, greatly amplified in 1796 as part of the text of the first memoir on the skeleton. This memoir was translated from the Spanish original by the French comparative anatomist Baron Georges Cuvier, who, although he never personally examined the skeleton, later wrote a detailed account of its osteology from copies of the engravings. During the years around the dawn of the 19th century, when the great Alexander von Humboldt was exploring the Orinoco Valley, he found elephant bones embedded in gravel near Cumanacoa in Venezuela. A little later, the same traveler found numerous fossil bones of mastodons near Santa Fe de Bogota in Colombia, these being especially abundant at a locality known as the Camp of the Giants, or the Field of the Giants. Humboldt also found elephant teeth near Concepcion in Chile and other fossil bones in the Cordillera de Chiquitos near Santa Cruz de la Sierra. Some of these remains and an elephant molar found by the same traveler on the volcano of Ibambura at an elevation of 7,200 feet above sea level were described by Cuvier. With these notices and the discovery during 1795 of another megatherium skeleton in Argentina, the world of natural science was introduced to a hitherto entirely unsuspected mammalian fauna, which had flourished in South America during geologically very recent times. Later discoveries were to show that man had been contemporaneous with it. Not long after the appearance of Cuvier's great work, Professor Charles Lyell was shown in the Museum of the American Philosophical Society at Philadelphia a block of limestone from Santos in Brazil, obtained by Captain Elliott of the U.S. Navy. This block contained a human skull, teeth, and other bones, together with fragments of shells, some of which were still retained traces of their original colors. Remains of several hundred other human skeletons were dug out of similar calcareous tufa at the same place, where the presence of serpulae, what is that? Did I look this one up? No results. Not even the dictionary knows what word that is.
What is tufa? He's calling it that's like
tough. Tufi, porous rock comprised of calcium carbonate and formed by precipitation of water around mineral springs.
Oh, so that's almost like alabaster.
Yeah.
Or travertine or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's interesting how they're pointing out how young these bones are. Like some of them are embedded in limestone, but other ones are just in sediments, and they're not necessarily lithified. Which was part of the reason why, he's pointing out that some of these shells found with this human skull still retained traces of their original colors, because it's not, the shell hasn't been fossilized, basically. Right. It's still a shell. Okay.
What's the other word that
The other word is serpulae. The presence of these in the rock suggested that all remains were deposited through marine action. So it might be an animal form or a... Yeah, that's it, Watcher. So Watcher's looking it up for us.
Welcome, Watcher, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
We didn't introduce the guy.
Man, we're such jerks. Too late. Don't unmute your mic. I'm just kidding.
Well,
Watcher's on the job.
If he can find out what that word is, he can come on and say hi and tell us what it is.
So a serpula is a type of like anemone. Serpulae is its plural.
Serpulae, yes.
Why you
The
had
presence of
difficulty
these
finding it.
serpulae.
So it's like a tiny little sea creature that's also in there fossilized.
Okay, yeah.
Appreciate that. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up.
You on the job? I guess
No. We'll be a short time from now. But
Okay.
so far, so good.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Lyle observed that this shell of the serpulae would not have been brought so far inland by natives for food. Dr. C.D. Meigs, who wrote an account of this discovery, said, Captain Elliot, while riding along the banks of the River Santas on his way from the port of Santas to the town of St. Paul, found a mound 3 acres in extent and 14 feet high, about 10 miles from the sea and 4 miles from Santas. The bones he took with him to America were dug from the face of the hill where it was cut by the wash of the stream, and are parts of one skeleton out of many hundreds that are still lying in their bed.
Oh my God.
Tufa. So he found a burial mound.
Yeah.
And the stream was cutting into it. It's weird why does this guy think they wouldn't have brought, 10 miles from the ocean's not that far, is it? To bring in food, seafood? I don't know. They were lying on the rock in an oblique direction, the heads uppermost and the lower extremities dipping at an angle from 20 to 25 degrees below the horizon. Portions of the bones were invested externally with stalactitic deposits of carbonate of lime, looking very much like a mummified skin. Close to one of the teeth was a serpula and a piece of oyster shell. The rock in which the skeleton was embedded consisted of fragments of shells united by stalactitic matter and contained nodules of carbonaceous matter. A question naturally arises as to the date of that catastrophe, which enclosed several hundred individuals in that tufa of the Rio Santos.
Okay, so he's saying it's not a burial mound.
Maybe not, yeah. It's a bone bed.
Yeah. Full of humans.
Yeah, and shells.
Wow.
Of a marine nature. So maybe they're basically implying that there was an incursion of seawater 10 miles inland.
Wow.
That buried a bunch of people. So you're basically talking about a big tsunami.
Yeah.
It seems unlikely that these remains were formally buried by sorrowing friends. It is unlikely that so solid a stone should have been formed at so great a distance from the sea. No doubt they are coexistent with the emerged land. They are not to be considered as the results of human industry. Okay, so the guy says it right out there. The shore of the Atlantic must have formerly swept nearly in a line with these remarkable deposits. Within this bed, or nearer than it to the sea, are found fossil bones of elephants, etc., which cannot be so old as the unfossilized oyster shells, since they could not have been fossilized anterior to the existence of the soil out of which they are dug, unless you consider them as boulders, which is inadmissible. In a limestone cavern on the borders of the Lagoa do Sumidoro, some 3 leagues from Santa Lucia, Dr. P. W. Lund excavated the bones of more than 30 individuals, humans, of both sexes and various ages. The skeletons lay buried in hard clay overlying the original red soil forming the floor of the cave, and were found mixed together in such great confusion, not only with one another, but with the remains of the megatherium and other Pleistocene mammals, as to preclude the idea that they had been entombed by the hand of man. All the bones, whether human or animal, showed evidence of having been contemporary with one another. So this is reminiscent of earth in upheaval. He's talking about these caves where it's just everything's jammed in there. Animals and people, young and old.
It's crazy, dude.
All buried together in a matrix of stuff that's clearly different from down deeper what was the original floor of the cave. In other caves investigated by Lund, bones of ancient men were found alongside those of the formidable Smilodon, a giant feline which became extinct during the last Pleistocene times. Referring to the evidence from these and other Brazilian fossiliferous caves, the Marquis de something wrote, "Doubtless, these men and animals lived together and perished together, common victims of catastrophes, the time and cause of which are alike unknown." Two further cases are of particular interest. The first of these concerns the discovery of the remains of primitive humanoid mammals associated with the bones of creatures regarded by this discoverer as gigantic saurians in volcanic ash and lava deposits encountered in the Mato Grosso state. So that would be like giant lizards. Not dinosaurs, but, just giant lizards. Definitely not Pleistocene dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs are giant birds.
The second case relates to the occurrence of the remains of mastodons, camels, and an extinct species of horse in beds of volcanic ash high in the Andes in Ecuador. Associated with these mammalian bones was the fossilized skull of a woman. This cranium, which is, maybe you tell us what this is, watcher, dolichocephalus? Let me see if I can look that one up. I don't know what that means. Was scientifically described in 1925 by Drs. Louis R. Sullivan and Milo Hellman, and has since become generally known as the Punin skull. The presence of an australoid type in Ecuadorian South America during geologically recent times poses questions about prehistoric human populations in the continent, to the solution or partial solution of which the different configuration of South America before or up to late Pleistocene times, although conjectural in many respects, may well contribute. The critical importance of the Punin and Mato Grosso discoveries in the present context, however, lies in their stark demonstration that in South America, human and animal denizens of the late Pleistocene world were exposed to and perished by geological upheavals of inconceivable violence and extent.
For sure.
Yeah. So that last one, he just throws in there that there's the skull of a person that shouldn't be there based on the skull morphology. Mixed in with these Pleistocene animals. So, part 3, freshness of the fossil remains. In abundance of Pleistocene animal fossils, South America compares very well with Siberia and North America. Authorities are as one in stressing the freshness of a high proportion of the skeletal remains and associated substances found on a continent mostly within the tropical zone. Darwin observed in Voyage of the Beagle, the 1876 edition, that some remains of a large unknown mammal exhumed from Pleistocene deposits in the Banda Oriental district of Uruguay appeared so fresh that, quote, "it is difficult to believe that they have lain buried for ages underground. The bone contains so much animal matter that when heated in the flame of a spirit lamp, it not only exhales a very strong animal odor, but likewise burns with a slight flame," unquote. Fossil bones, when subjected to heat or fire, do not ordinarily burn with a flame. Elsewhere, Darwin referred to the perfect preservation of even the minutest details of fossil bones dug up at Bahia Blanca. In his description of the skeleton of the giant sloth, Mylodon, Professor Richard Owen noted a similarly perfect state of preservation as regards the individual bones and concluded that the individual represented must have been buried almost immediately upon death. Dr. P.W. Lund also recorded how he found in a Brazilian cavern a skeleton of Scelidotherium oweni, in which Not only did all the bones lie in correct relative position, but they were covered with the cellulose tissue of calcareous matter, evidently derived from the petrifaction of the soft parts of the animal.
Petrifaction?
Yeah. It says petrifaction. Or, basically petrification.
So is he saying that fossil bones are actually stone? We're still having
We
this.
have been having this argument. Yes. We actually got Randall and George to have the argument.
Yeah.
Because first we had the argument with Randall, and then later we had the opposite argument with George, because we had been convinced by Randall. And then when we met them all, we got George and Randall to argue about it. Just like, leave us out of this, guys.
Yeah. Speaking of which, finding fossil bones. When we went to the bone bed,
We
didn't-
should talk about that in the beginning of the next segment.
Hold on a second. When
Okay.
we went to the bone bed, we didn't get to go to the bone bed.
Yeah.
We got a nice lecture. I'm running out of time. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Path of the Pole, Part 10. I don't remember what I was saying.
Bone bed.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we didn't actually get to go in there because it was flooding.
We
But-
told George. You guys heard
Yeah,
it on
you
the
heard
show.
us.
We're like, something is going to happen, some catastrophe. Sure enough, we get to Houston.
It's like we're driving through rivers.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did get an awesome geology lesson, and we got to look at some specimens. One piece was just a piece of mammoth bone.
Yeah.
Right? This little thing looked like a flat rock, but if you look closer, you could see all the vesicles or whatever from the bone. And I was at work the other day, and I was waiting for some pressure to build up on this pump or whatever, and there's this pile of river gravel that we had put there to fix a road that was actually excavated out of the river. The river dried up, and we excavated all this sediment from
Yeah.
who knows how many floods from the last 30 years or whatever out of there, and spread it all out on the property at the vineyard. So I went looking through this stuff and found a couple of chunks, very light, like they look like big rocks, but they're super light, and they have all those pores in them. And I'm like, dude, I think these are chunks of like mammoth bones.
Bone. Yeah.
So down the street from us is a quarry, and they're excavating out of the Guadalupe River Valley, and they have a giant mammoth tooth.
That's right.
On their
Yeah.
on the shelf in there that they found.
Yeah.
So we got them, bro.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the book. So, from the extensive literature on this subject, it is impracticable here either to acknowledge further sources or to extract the many additional examples of known of similar burials. Special reference, however, should be made to the undermentioned specimens derived from the Pampas areas which suggest flood action. A. Mammalian skeletons in natural or upright positions. These are embedded respectively in undisturbed and largely unstratified beds of gravel, loam, or mud. And B, a skeleton of an adult female mylodon found in a natural posture alongside that of its young one, and they are embedded in gravel. So natural posture, it's like they're caught mid-step, or, they're basically like standing or sitting or whatever. This is not unlike the Beresovka mammoth was found in a sitting position. Maybe not a totally natural one, but it's upright. Yeah, it's just wild.
That is weird. How could this happen?
Yeah, mammalian skeletons in natural or upright positions. They are embedded in unstratified beds of gravel, loam, or
So
mud.
it's almost like they were swimming
Yeah,
in the flood, but there was just so much sediment in it that they.
yeah.
I don't know. Is that possible?
I don't know. Seems like
They'd pass out and flip over or whatever. I mean,
yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, like if there's a mudslide or a huge flood comes in, it tumbles you, right?
Yeah,
You're not gonna. So how do you end up upright? It seems like you have to be. Everything has to be dumped on you and slightly gently so that it doesn't crush you, right? Because an enormous amount, enough mud to cover a mammoth or whatever. He doesn't say mammoth; it just says mammals.
Is it mud or gravel?
Gravel, loam, or mud.
Mud seems more likely.
Yeah.
Like, because they're in the mud.
Yeah.
And they're just sinking in it. Right? Like, if it's real thin, you just sink down in it and you'd be in the upright position.
Yeah.
Like, we almost were fossils like that.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yes. Several times.
Several times we almost died in the mud.
And there's also the room of clay in the cave.
No, don't talk about
that.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is waiting for someone to be fossilized
Yeah.
in. Yeah. That place would like quiver when you walked around in there. It was it was
Had
creepy.
this,
Yeah. And there was the bird that made it extra creepy. Yeah. Okay. In addition, a markedly high percentage of megatherium skeletons apparently had lost only their left extremities, which suggests human agency. In these and other cases, it is generally agreed that the individuals perished before their carcasses were subjected to the eventful last stages of entombment. Included in this category are the discoveries in the La Pumilla Valley of the carapaces of giant armadillos standing upright on their edges in the pampas mud. Burmeister, who noted these occurrences, also mentioned that the, how do you say that word? Cuirass, which is basically like, normally would be like, well, the way I've seen it is it's like a breastplate of plate armor. So maybe that's what they're talking about, but for animals. Of the great glyptodonts. So the cuirass of the great glyptodonts are generally found reversed, and that many instances are known of large, though usually incomplete, mammalian skeletons being found upside down or with their bones manifestly disjointed and scattered within a small space.
I just keep thinking about Ogg's cookbook. It was a fad back then. Left leg of mammoth.
Yes, that's right.
It only
There it
cooks
is.
the left leg.
It's only, yeah. Right, so this
Why?
cuirass, a piece of armor consisting of a breastplate and backplate fastened together. Right, so if you think of a turtle, it would be the shell plus the chest part. So the great glyptodonts are they're related to armadillos, but they're huge. So the glyptodonts, so the cuirass of a glyptodont would be its upper shell and also its chest, lower shell. So they find these sometimes upside down, like lots of them sitting upside down, like the armadillo, like, and that's death for an armadillo or a turtle. So these extraordinary modes of burial are further exemplified by the groups of animal fossils unearthed at widely separated South American localities in which incongruous animal types, carnivores and herbivores, are mixed promiscuously with human bones. These are found not only in the Pampas Formation, but also in Brazilian caves and in volcanic ash elsewhere. No less significant is the association over truly widespread areas of fossilized land and sea creatures, mingled in no order, yet entombed in the same geological horizon, and also the occurrence of mastodon remains in the Cordilleras at altitudes impossibly high for their ordinary existence. So you have all over the place in South America sea animals entombed in the same like unstratified layers with land animals, and then, you know, mammals in the mountains, or mammoths in the mountains. So clearly,
I wonder if that could be, if those mountains are
the Cordilleras are young.
like sedimentary rock, and then it's flooding down the mountain and ripping up old seabed and then burying mammals and stuff in it. So you're finding they're not contemporaneous.
Yeah.
Like the sea fossils could be older.
Yep.
Even though you can still have shells with color, I mean they could still be pretty old.
Yeah. I don't know if you would end up with shells with color in mountains, though, right? Wouldn't those be really old?
Yeah.
They might be colored by whatever minerals they were made out of, but you know, they're not going to have their original coloring. But yeah, I guess you're right. So the question would be, did they check to see, well, all of the sea fossils are actually lithified, whereas these pleistocene animals are not so much? That would be one way to tell. Because then you're talking about, okay, well, these are fossils that were ripped away from a 100 million year old bed.
But I think that's what he was suggesting earlier when he was saying that these shells still have color. Like
Yeah.
that these are young.
Right. But that was a different deposit. But yes, I think you're right. And then he says, so you find carnivores, herbivores mixed with human bones in the caves. This is more stuff we've read in Earth and Upheaval. A widespread area of fossilized land and sea creatures, so fossilized but not lithified, mingled in no order, and then the occurrence of mastodon remains in the Cordilleras Mountains at altitudes impossibly high for their ordinary. So it's like are they running from the flood? You know,
Yeah, 'cause
that's
if
the
you
other thing
think
you
about
think
it-
of is like they go uphill to get away from the water,
Yeah.
or they get picked up by a giant wave and washed up the mountain and left.
Yeah. I was just thinking about like our rivers here. If you take the sediment out of our rivers, it's got modern mammal bones and ancient sea creature fossils.
Right, because of the stone it's going through, it's
Yeah.
got ancient sea creatures, and then because of the area, the biome it's going through, it's got modern mammals. Yeah, you're right. But I think you can kind of tell the difference, right? You wouldn't, if you knew a little bit, you wouldn't.
Well, I'm saying this mammoth tooth that I saw at the quarry looks like a chunk of limestone. It's been calcified a little bit on the outside, but of course it's got those
Yeah.
patterns on the bottom.
You mean it's got the coloring of the caliche or whatever?
It looks like, it looks like it would fit right in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Just as an example.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've found some bones in the river gravel, but you can tell like a young bone,
Yeah.
from like a really old one,
Right.
old fossilized one.
Yeah, and then of course we've found bits of petrified wood in the middle of areas that is all sedimentary rock.
Yeah.
So you're just like, okay, was this driftwood? Like, you
Yeah.
know. And I do have a small chunk of one where there was you can see like there's a knot in the petrified wood, and then there's kind of how wood it can start to degrade and it gets a hole in it, and in the hole is jammed in a bunch of sand with bits of shells in it. So it does seem like it was a piece of beech wood that's now totally lithified.
What you want to find is one that has a heart and says, Mom. That would be amazing.
Mamadon.
Carved in the ancient tree.
Yeah, if you found it, yes. Yes, if you found a piece of petrified wood with a carving on it, you'd disappear forever.
Of course.
All right, where was I here? skipping forward here. Right. Okay. So clearly these varied but apparently contemporaneous burials all over the South American continent are the results of different and relatively localized effects of a single tremendous upheaval, the numerous ramifications of which operated synchronously. In seeking to explain one of these effects, one must explain them all. Part 4, Theories and Considerations. The aforecited facts in their full accumulative presentation are inconsistent with nature's normal disposal of bodies. This has long been recognized, and the mysterious character of the problem has been admitted by the highest authorities. But no comprehensive explanation has been advanced to date which accounts for all the phenomena. And this is classic. We've, in going through all the Younger Dryas stuff, you see the same thing. They want to, at least the trend has been throughout the past, is they want to, we only want to look at this one part and then we can use this explanation to explain this one piece. But when you really look at the whole event, it requires an enormous explanation. But they want to look at each individual, well, this happened in this state and this happened in that county and there's this site over here and this thing over here, and let's explain them all separately and not ever connect them together.
Right.
So theories ascribing mass animal extermination variously to glacial cold, colossal sand and windstorms, immense floods, volcanic gas, local river flooding, pestilence, and parasitical poisoning are not lacking. But none of these has been able to win general acceptance. Now, however, that it is possible with the aid of the theory developed in this book to evaluate the position, who will doubt that South America exhibits part and counterpart of the global convulsion which terminated the end of the Pleistocene world? The reader will not fail to be impressed by the conclusions reached by Alcide d'Orbigny, whose standing and accuracy tribute must still be paid. He wrote, quote, "It would seem that one cause destroyed the terrestrial animals of South America, and that this cause is to be found in great dislocations of the ground caused by the upheaval of the Cordilleras. If not, it is difficult to conceive, on the one hand, the sudden and fortuitous destruction of the great animals which inhabited the American continents, and on the other hand, the vast deposit of the Pampan mud. I argue that this destruction was caused by an invasion of the continent by water, a view which is completely in rapport with the facts presented by the great Pampan deposit, which was clearly laid down by water. How otherwise can we account for this complete destruction and the homogeneity of the Pampas deposits containing bones? I find an evident proof of this in the immense number of bones and of entire animals whose numbers are greatest at the outlets of the valleys, as Mr. Darwin shows. He found the greatest number of the remains at Bahia Blanca, at Bajada, and also on the coast and on affluents of the Rio Negro, also the outlet of the valley. This proves that the animals were floated and hence were chiefly carried to the coast." So maybe what you're saying is right. If they're in upright positions, maybe some of them were being floated and they just gently got dropped in the deep sediment and then, were just entombed in that muddy water in upright positions. I don't know. Would a mammoth float upright if it was dead in the water? Legs dangling down.
Yeah.
I don't see them turning sideways, right?
Yeah, not with their extremities.
If they started to bloat at all, they would be upright, right? It seems like it.
Yeah, probably.
Because their legs would be hanging down and the
Right.
central body mass would be, I don't know. What floats in water? Mammoths. Thanks, watcher.
I picked up that piece of that mammoth tusk, dude. It was so heavy.
Yeah.
Like, it was this long, not even 3 feet.
Yeah.
And maybe 2.5 inches.
Incredibly
in diameter.
dense. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, on a couple of shows ago, I was like, do mammoth tusks float?
No.
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 No, that thing is heavy. I can't imagine trying
And
to.
if they're full size, it's like, yeah.
Trying to haul a whole one.
Yeah. Yeah, that gave me more respect for, I was after John Reeves went on Joe Rogan, I was looking at their Instagram and his son picking up a whole one and walking with it. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
that's like,
Don't fight that guy.
yeah, right. Okay, so continuing with this quote here. This hypothesis necessitates that the Pampas mud was deposited suddenly as the result of violent floods of water, which carried off the soil and other superfluous debris and mingled them together. This homogeneity of the soil in all parts of the Pampas, even in places 200 leagues apart, is very remarkable. There are not different strata, differently colored, but a homogeneous mass, which is more or less porous and shows no sign of distinct stratification. The deposit is also one uniform color, as if it had been mixed in one muddy flood, slightly tinted by oxide of iron. The bones, again, are only found isolated in the lower strata, while entire animals occur on the circumference or the upper part of this basin. Thus, they are very rare at Buenos Aires, while they abound in the Banda Oriental and in the White Bay. Mr. Darwin says they are heaped up in the latter place, which again supports the contention. So that's interesting as well. So he's saying they're only found isolated in the lower strata, but entire animals occur on the edges of this mud deposit, which is massive. Now, that may be an artifact of discovery, right? The edge of the mud deposit might be a place where stuff is washing out and you can see them. But it seems like, to me, he's describing, like, so you have this very thick, homogeneous layer, and you find the bones at the bottom of it and most abundant on the edges of it, of the whole outwash. Another argument may be drawn from the fact that the Pampas mud is identical in color and appearance with the earth in which the fossil remains occur in the caverns and fissures in Brazil. And the fragments brought by M. Clausen are completely like the others in color and texture. So he's implying that the remains in the caverns and fissures may be part of the same event because it's the same color material. My final conclusion from the geological facts I have observed in America is that there was a perfect coincidence between the upheaval of the Cordilleras, the destruction of the great race of animals, and the great deposit of Pampas mud. Which is really interesting because that would imply that the Cordilleras are extremely young because we're talking about pleistocene era animals. Yeah. So if the upheaval of the Cordilleras coincides with the extinction of all the megafauna in South America, then those mountains are 12,000 years old.
I'm still just trying to wrap my brain around this giant flow of mud that just trapped all these animals in it.
Yeah. He doesn't give a source, right? All he says is, like, this is what it looks like. We have this massive mud flat, very thick, totally homogeneous, covers this enormous amount of material.
It's crazy.
Land.
Can you imagine that coming down? I mean, what are you going to do? Yeah. Nothing. You just...
Yeah. Awesome fossil face.
Yeah.
You can be one of the upright fossils. So that was the end of the quote. Okay, so Hapgood says, nor will a researcher today withhold agreement with Professor Thomas Henry Huxley, quoted by Howarth, who said in 1869, to my mind, there appears to be no sort of theoretical antagonism between catastrophism and uniformitarianism. On the contrary, it is very conceivable that catastrophes may be part and parcel of uniformity. Let me illustrate my case by analogy. The working of a clock is a model of uniform action. Good timekeeping means uniformity of action, but the striking of a clock is essentially a catastrophe.
All right.
Yep. Break time.
Yep.
A catastrophe in the uniform podcast recording.
That's right.
Everything stops. we are back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the Serpent Podcast. This is definitely part of the Institute for Advanced Coprolite Studies here. There are no degrees here, only certificates of ignorance, which you have to print or make yourself somehow with a crayon or an old typewriter. So continuing on with the book and continuing on with this analogy about uniformity, the hammer might be made to blow up a barrel of gunpowder or turn on a deluge of water, and by proper arrangement of the clock, instead of marking the hours, might strike all sorts of irregular intervals, never twice alike in the intervals, force, or numbers of its blows. Nevertheless, all of these irregular and apparently lawless catastrophes would be the result of an absolutely uniformitarian action, and we might have two schools of clock theorists, one studying the hammer and the other the pendulum. So that was an address to the Geological Society in 1869 by Professor Thomas Henry Huxley. So he's talking about punctuated equilibrium there.
Yeah. But I like the analogy of a hammer. I wonder why he came up with that one.
Well, he was talking about the hammer of the clock, right?
Yeah, but it's like impact.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah. Yes. A hammer might be made to blow up a barrel of gunpowder. Yeah. Or turn on a deluge of water. Yeah. Okay, chapter 12. So when I got to this, I was like, yes, this is also right up our area of interest. Some problems with evolution.
Oh, no.
Bring on the mad emails.
Don't get mad.
In the preceding chapters, we have reviewed a mass of evidence that suggests displacements of the Earth's crust at comparatively short intervals during the Earth's history. We shall now see that this assumption throws some light on the process of evolution. Part 1. The cause of evolution. A century ago, in The Origin of Species, Darwin suggested natural selection as the mechanism to account for evolution. The combination of the occurrence of natural variations with elimination of the unfit individuals in the competitive struggle for existence helped to explain a process of unending gradual change in the forms of life. Darwin did not consider that this was the whole answer. He admitted, for example, that he could not explain the numerous instances of the worldwide extinction of many forms of life simultaneously, especially in those cases where apparently there were no competitors and no successors to the extinct forms. Biologists today are in agreement that evolution has occurred, but they also feel that the process has not been satisfactorily explained. Thus, Dr. Barghorn of Harvard has recently referred to, quote, our limited understanding of the actual causes of evolution, unquote, while quoting Dr. George Gaylord Simpson, author of the widely read Meaning of Evolution, as remarking, quote, search for the cause of evolution has been abandoned, unquote. That's weird. The cause of evolution, the search for the cause has been abandoned. But there is a tendency at the present time for specialists to recognize a large number of interacting factors that may together conceivably account for evolution through though their relative importance is not agreed upon. This situation does not exclude the possibility that the confusion may indeed arise because one factor is still missing, a factor which, when added, will bring the others into proper focus. Part 2.
Who's saying that?
That was Hapgood saying that at the
Okay.
end. Yeah, he basically quoted two different people. One said our limited understanding of the actual causes of evolution, and the other one said the search for the cause has been abandoned.
Yeah, okay.
And so Hapgood is basically saying right now, or at least at the time he was writing the book, specialists recognize a large number of interacting factors, but they don't really know how it all works together, and they haven't been able to
Unify it.
it. And Hapgood is basically implying that if you throw in crustal shift in there, and he'll explain this as we go forward, if you throw in crustal shift, it can unify all of these different factors and then provide the impetus for evolution to take place in the way that we see it has in the geological record. So while no biologists since Darwin's time have questioned the basic fact of evolution, numerous difficulties have developed with natural selection. In the first place, while Darwin could present evidence of changes produced in varieties of plants and animals by artificial selective breeding, he was not able to show how, even under artificial conditions, such changes could lead to the establishment of new species. Recently, some progress may have been made in solving this problem, but by the end of the 19th century, Darwin's explanation of the mechanism of evolution had been largely abandoned. Natural selection had come to be considered by many biologists as chiefly a negative factor, capable of eliminating unadapted variations, but not of producing new species. Around the turn of the century, the attention of evolutionists was turned to mutation, the sudden change in hereditary characteristics produced by an alteration of the basic genetic factors, genes, and chromosomes. One of the early mutationists, Hugo de Vries, believed that a large-scale mutation might produce a new kind of plant or animal in a single step. Many evolutionists then adopted mutation and gave up natural selection as the explanation for evolution. This did not, however, end the controversy. A neo-Darwinian school clinging to natural selection raised damaging objections to the theory of evolution through massive mutations. They insisted, for one thing, that different plants or animals differed by a great many minor traits rather than by a few major ones. This would mean that a great many mutations would be required, and that these mutations would have to take place in the same individual or in the same line of descent. The fact that mutation is apparently an entirely accidental process rendered the mathematical chances against the coincidence of many mutations in one individual or in one line of individuals completely overwhelming. But this was by no means the only difficulty. The anti-mutationists could argue that since mutations were purely accidental changes in the hereditary factors and did not occur in response to needs created by the environment, most mutations would be positively harmful, or at least negative, and would have no effect on the adaptation of the organism to its environment. Only a chance mutation, now and then, could help an organism to survive. Mutationists were unable to show the existence of any principle by which mutations would be adaptive, that is, brought about as a part of an effort of an organism to adapt to the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also makes me think of the, the probability that you will get order out of chaos as opposed to just more chaos.
Right.
Or chaos from order.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many more options for chaos
Yes.
than there are for order.
That's right. Yeah.
So productive mutations are just, the probability is slim to none.
Right. Yes. Just by chance, and they're almost always going to be bad mutations. Yeah. And then to have in a single individual, or even in like he said, a line of descent, a bunch of positive mutations, it's just like he said, mathematically almost impossible. So some recent, and also I like how he's explaining here that you can't really show how any mutations are brought about as a part of an effort by the organism to adapt to its environment, right? It has to be accidental, which makes it yeah.
And then then most of the mutations are going to be useless.
Right. Even if they're not like positive, they don't necessarily
help you.
I mean, even if they're not like damaging or negative, they don't necessarily help you. Okay. So recent experiments indicate that such adaptive mutation may occur, perhaps under special and rare conditions, but it still cannot be shown that adaptation by mutation has been an important factor in evolution. The mutationists did establish, of course, that minor mutations were of frequent occurrence and might even be induced artificially. Therefore, evolutionists accepted them, but they recognized them as just another way of accounting for the occurrence of variations. The law of natural selection would still be required in order to eliminate the harmful mutations, which would constitute the great majority of all mutations. For a while, it seemed that in this way, the basic question of evolution was answered. But it soon appeared that this was very far from being the case. The acceptance of mutations by the Darwinians as a factor in evolution did not solve the problem. It became clear, as time passed, that a major difficulty remained. Attention was concentrated on the rate at which mutation and natural selection could be effective in changing life forms. Mathematical studies showed that such changes would take place, according to the theory, at rates so slow that even long geological eras would provide insufficient time for evolution. Professor Dodson wrote, quote, "In nature, neither mutation nor selection will ordinarily occur alone, and so the two will act simultaneously, perhaps in the same direction, perhaps in opposite directions. Most frequently, selection will work against mutation, as the majority of possible mutations are deleterious. This will result in very slow change, if any." And then he emphasizes, "It appears that it is extremely difficult for mild selection pressures, unaided by any other factor, to establish a new dominant gene in a species." By mild selection pressure, Dodson means those conditions of competition between life forms pointed out by Darwin. That is, the competition that goes on at all times. What he suggests here is that some more drastic influence must have operated to produce evolutionary change. After discussing Haldane's mathematical calculations indicating the astronomical numbers of generations that might be required to change a plant or animal under the influence of mild selection pressures, Dodson quotes Dobzhansky, the leader of the neo-Darwinian school, on their implications. Quote, "The number of generations needed for the change may, however, be so tremendous that the efficiency of selection alone as an evolutionary agent may be open to doubt, and this even if time on a geological scale is involved. Thus, the problem is clearly posed. It is the problem of time. It is necessary to find some way of explaining how natural selection can have operated at a rate sufficiently rapid to account for evolution. A factor of acceleration is required." Some writers, when they saw that evolution could not be explained even with the enormous amounts of time available under the current concepts of the lengths of the geological periods, they felt compelled to revert to mystical explanations. Writers such as Dunois concluded that evolution was totally inconceivable unless its course had been indicated in advance by the reigning influence of cosmic purpose. For these writers, the end or final purpose of evolution must be the active controlling force of the whole process. The process at basis could be understood only as the direct effect and evidence of the will of God. Another solution was proposed by Richard Goldschmidt, who became the leader of the anti-Darwinians. He renewed the emphasis on major or macro mutations. As Dodson puts it, quote, "Goldschmidt believes that the neo-Darwinian theory places too great a burden upon natural selection, and hence that the work of selection must be shortened by some other process, namely systematic mutations." By systematic mutation is meant a mutation that changes not merely an individual trait of an organism, but a whole complex of traits. That is, that changes a basic principle of the biological system. But the majority of writers on evolution today seem to feel that Goldschmidt's specific arguments for macro mutations have been refuted. I can contribute no opinion on this technical question, but from my point of view, the most significant thing about the Goldschmidt theory is that he produced it in an effort to gain time for the process of evolution, to accelerate it, so that the amount of evolutionary change in life forms could be brought into rough agreement with the available amount of geological time. The rejection of his theory, if the rejection is indeed based upon sound considerations, means that another factor must be found to account for the tempo of evolution. Are you following the... Okay, yeah. So I love this. Finding these kinds of nuggets in these books.
Yeah.
Hark back to stuff we've talked about and things we've read about in other books. And so you get multiple different views on it. I didn't know there were mutationists and selectionists.
I remember learning about those. I mean,
I just had never heard those terms. Yeah. And then there are anti-mutationists and anti-Darwinians and neo-Darwinians and all that. All right. Part 3, climate and evolution. Evolutionists in general agree that climatic change must have had a powerful influence on evolution. Geologists have, as I pointed out, found a correspondence between periods of climatic change and changes in the forms of life. It is evident that as long as the general environment remains roughly the same, there can be only gentle selection pressures such as apparently are inadequate to account for evolution. With static environmental conditions, forms of life may continue virtually unchanged for tens or hundreds of millions of years. There are any number of organisms living today whose very similar ancestors lived in remote geological periods. To name merely a few, there is the newly discovered coelacanth. Is that how you say that? I think so. A fish whose ancestors 100 or more million years ago looked exactly as he does today. And the recently discovered Dawn redwood, found growing in China after having been regarded as extinct since its close relatives disappeared in Alaska about 20 million years ago. And the sphenodon, a reptile of New Zealand, whose ancestors very closely resembling him were contemporaries of Tyrannosaurus rex, and horseshoe crabs, whose time span may amount to 500 million years, and palm trees, whose age has just been jumped another 10 million years, and sharks and scorpions and so on.
No wonder horseshoe crabs look like
Yes.
aliens.
They do.
UFOs.
Yeah.
That's wild that they
Did he say
insane.
that palm trees jumped the sharks? Is that what he said here? I don't know.
It is crazy that they're the same, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do they explain that? There's been
Almost no change.
selection pressure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I read, because as we go further in, he basically says that there are unique cases where some animal form finds a niche in its environment and it fits in there and it spreads around the world and it occupies that spot in the biomes, right? And then if it can continue to find spots very like that over all these geological periods, it doesn't change. There's no selection pressure. There's no, adaptation pressure. And if it fails to get wiped out in some massive catastrophe, then it can stay unchanged for a long time. That's basically the idea that I get from reading this.
Seems like there would always be pressure at the margins,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, there are.
even in a population, they're competing with each other.
Yes.
And like the bigger
Yeah.
ones are gonna,
Yeah.
whatever.
And that's why you have like hammerhead sharks and shovelhead sharks. Those guys are definitely in a war for whose head is better. But they're both sharks, right?
What selection pressure gave your head a hammer? I don't understand.
Or a shovel.
Yeah.
I mean, shovels and hammers on hands or flippers or whatever, but who decided that the head needed to be a shovel or a hammer?
I don't know. Whoever, it was probably made by the same person who decided they needed to have sandpaper for fucking skin.
Yeah. Clearly they are the working class of the ocean, of the marine. Say they're sandpaper for skin, hammers and shovels, right?
Yeah. Blender for a mouth.
That's right.
Jeez.
God.
Get out of here. What the hell are you doing?
Okay. So at the same time, it is equally true that any kind of animal or plant may succumb in the course of the usual and continuous competition between life forms and of the local or transitory climatic variations that are always occurring. To forget this fact would distort the picture. Furthermore, recent studies have shown that new varieties of plants and animals can appear within very short periods of time, on the order of a century or less, if they live in conditions of isolation. But these rapidly produced varieties are not the same, of course, as established species. A factor which undeniably must produce pressure for profound change in the form of life is major climatic change. Clearly, this will apply what evolutionists call strong selection pressure. In this case,
I just miss. Is he saying that isolation can produce more change? Is that what he was saying?
yes, that rapidly produced varieties, like little tiny changes and stuff, like maybe the coloring of the feathers or, you know, something like that can happen very quickly in an isolated area.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? Like if they get trapped on an island,
Right. Okay.
a century later, they may be like noticeably different from their original species.
Because they're not backbreeding.
Yeah. Right. There isn't this massive population that's
It's like
kind of maintaining the mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so in this case, life forms will have but three alternatives. So under major climatic change, they have three alternatives: to migrate, to adapt, or to die. Geologists and biologists have never denied the truth of this. Coleman, for example, recognized the importance of the glacial periods in, quote, hastening and intensifying, unquote, the process of evolution. Lull recognizes the importance of basic climatic changes thus, quote, for changes of climate react directly upon plant life, and hence both directly and indirectly upon that of animals, while restriction or amplification of habitat and the severance and formation of land bridges provide the essential isolation, or by the introduction of new forms, increase competition, both of which stimulate evolutionary progress, unquote.
So it's interesting, though. I'm just thinking about this isolation thing. Like, you have a population of elephants or whatever, and then you split them all up in different parts of the world, and then fast forward 1,000 years, and they all look distinct from each other.
Yeah.
Then if, say...
But they're still clearly elephants,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Then you put them all back in the same place, and then another 1,000 years later, they'll all look the same.
They blend, yeah.
That's cool.
It's always a blender. It comes down to blenders every time. If you put them in the ocean with the sharks, they all die. That's the other thing that happens. Doesn't matter if it's a hammerhead or a shovelhead.
That's right.
They all die.
So far, evolution has not found a difference between the hammerhead and the shovelhead.
It hasn't made up its mind. Yeah, it keeps experimenting with different heads on sharks, right? Or tails, right? There's the black tip, right? You know.
Humans should try this. We need hammerhead humans, dude.
We do have those. You find them riding bikes on the side of the road. Those are the hammerheads. Marty is one.
I
Okay.
almost got him first.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
So the problem has been until now that major climatic changes and concomitant changes in the distribution of land and sea could not be explained by any acceptable theory. They were inexplicable events in themselves. Their coincidence in time was inexplicable. Even more serious, they were assumed to have happened only at such extremely long intervals that the total number of such major climatic revolutions was too small to account for more than a very insignificant portion of evolutionary history. To recapitulate what has already been said, if drastic climatic and geographical change is the most obvious factor to which to look for changes in life forms, then it is to the acceleration of that factor that we must look for the acceleration of evolution. Wright has pointed out that the rate of evolutionary change may have been accelerated at various times through the mass transformation of one kind of plant or animal into another. This requires that all over the area of distribution of the life form in question, there must be strong pressure for change in the same direction. This means that similar new varieties would appear simultaneously and independently in countless localities, or that well-adapted new varieties would spread and become established rapidly. Quite obviously, this would tend to accelerate evolution. But how would such mass transformation be brought about? It could result only from profound transformation of the environment. The required change would have to be general and would have to tend in the same direction for a considerable period of time. No short-range fluctuations, and above all, no merely local climatic changes would suffice. A displacement of the crust appears to meet all these requirements.
Yeah, but so does, ice ages and
Yeah.
warm periods and all that. I mean, it's the same. It just
Yeah, he gets into that too, because he's saying, keep in mind everything we've done.
the displacement of the crust is sort of the cause of ice ages, according to
He's saying there are no ice ages. They're just ice
Right.
caps in different places.
Yeah.
That's his idea. Yeah. So what is important is that these changes of climate would apply over great areas of the Earth. In one movement of the crust, two opposite quarters of the Earth's surface would be moving equatorward, while two others were moving poleward. Thus, the climatic changes would be in the same direction over very great areas, the entire distribution, perhaps, of many plants and animals. Mass transformation of life forms might therefore be expected to occur. Not mass transformations of all life forms, of course, but merely one or two short steps in the mass transformation of one or a few kinds of plants or animals. New varieties might be established in great numbers during a single movement of the crust, but by this I do not mean to imply that many new species would be. The latter may be the end results of a considerable number of displacements of the crust. I hope that the reader will not ask me to define species. In this book, I use the term simply to denote forms of life that are reasonably distinct and relatively permanent. It's interesting that he just throws that in there. We must remember that the different areas of the Earth's surface would be unequally shifted in a crust displacement. I have explained that the amount of the displacement would depend on whether an area was near to or distant from the meridian of displacement. Selection pressures would vary accordingly. Since we consider displacements to have taken place in short periods of the order of 5 or 10,000 years, it seems likely that most plants and animals in areas radically displaced by a given movement would be unlikely to succeed in adapting. Some would migrate into areas having climates similar to their accustomed climates. Some would disappear. Some would develop varieties adapted to changed conditions. Even though there would be no wholesale creation of new plants and animals, the age-long process of change would have received an acceleration. Part 4, the distribution of species. Another important question is the problem of the origin of the present and past distribution of species over the face of the Earth. Darwin and Wallace attempted to explain the numerous difficulties in this field, but their explanations have, in general, become less and less satisfactory with the passing years. These are the questions. A. How did certain species cross wide oceans to become established on different continents? B. What accounts for the richness of some islands and the impoverishment of others with respect to their fauna and flora? C. How did many kinds of animals and plants get distributed from the north temperate to the south temperate zones, or from one polar zone to another across the tropics? These are great questions.
Yeah, that is a good question.
D. Why are certain species of freshwater fish inhabiting the lakes and rivers of Europe also found in the lakes and rivers of North America? Some of the answers to these puzzling questions will already be clear from what has been said about land bridges. Land bridges, or sunken continents, are obviously necessary to explain many of these distributions between continents and between continents and islands. Sunken continents have already been discussed. Here I would like to discuss the situation that confronts us if we are not allowed to postulate sunken continents or land bridges. If we cannot find an acceptable mechanism to account for the creation and destruction of land bridges or sunken continents, we are forced back upon the ingenious sweepstakes idea, which has been much overworked as an explanation for the distribution of species. The idea arose because it was observed that seabirds or migratory birds may carry the seeds of plants or the eggs of insects from continent to continent, and that some species manage to cross by chance bodies of water on floating objects such as logs or ice. Although it conveniently ignores about 9/10 of the evidence, this idea has gained considerable importance. Even though many species have migrated in this way, the idea is no substitute for land bridges, nor, it may be added, is one land bridge at Bering Strait able to do the work of explaining the infinite number of plant and animal migrations in all climatic zones in all geological periods. Many land bridges are required, and for these, an explanation is necessary. The theory presented in this book, however, can explain the creation and destruction of land bridges and sunken continents, and therefore it can explain the distribution of species across large bodies of water. The impoverishment of certain island faunas and floras as compared with others may be understood as follows. Some of these islands may have rich faunas and floras because in recent time they have had land connections with adjacent continents. This would be true of the Philippines, of Java, of Sumatra, and of numerous other islands in that area, whose former continental connections with either Asia or Australia have been argued for by Wallace and others. It is not a question of showing that the species in these islands came from the continents. It is simply true that there were land connections and that the species wandered back and forth. We do not know where they originated. An island like Java can have a rich fauna and flora not only because of having had rather recent connections with the continent of Asia, but also because it is mountainous. So I think this is really cool, and this will be the last bit we cover today. It's mountainous. This makes it possible, supposing at some time an equatorward displacement of the island into a warmer latitude, for temperate climate species to ascend into the mountains and survive. Such variety of climate conditions, due to differences of altitude of different parts of the island, would favor the preservation of a rich flora and fauna. That's a great, I just really think that's a cool idea.
So the fact that there's mountains in the geographical region
on the island.
Oh, on the island.
So the
itself.
island can move. He's basically saying,
yeah, but they can just go up.
They go up or down, and the mountain
genius,
provides them a place to find their.
But anywhere really,
Yeah.
any geographical region with a mountain range, if it's moving,
Right. Now clearly,
equatorward,
yes,
the animals
can climb.
Yeah, that's cool.
And vice versa, right? If they live kind of up on the mountain and it moves poleward, they can come down, right? Now, I find it hard to believe that something that existed in a grasslands biome can climb into a mountain and live in the Rockies or something. Like, that would require some adaptation on their part, right? If they're a burrowing animal or so. Now, he's not claiming that everything would survive that way, but he's saying here's a mechanism by which some stuff could survive, right?
But the first question, like, how are there same fish?
That's the last one, yeah.
In the rivers. Well, he started out with that one, I thought. Well, anyway.
Yeah. It's definitely numbered. It's D, which is the last one he said.
Dyslexia is
The first one is, how did certain species cross wide oceans?
Yeah.
Which is, so he's basically saying a land bridge, and then what accounts for the richness of some
the
islands?
land bridge is like, okay, but how do you get animals from fresh water, like
In
small
Europe,
rivers, to go across an ocean?
through the salt water.
Fresh water.
Yeah. That's why he brings up the birds. That's the classic explanation. The birds carry the eggs somehow, whatever,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The bird swoops down, swallows the fish whole,
Yeah.
and then flies across the ocean.
Before taking a crap. And the eggs are still good.
He pukes at the fish.
I think it was this is why I go with Charles Fort. The fish just rain out of the sky. And they populate the rivers and lakes in continents all over the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes freshwater fish rain in the ocean and they don't survive.
That's right.
And
yeah. Sometimes they rain in downtown.
Right. And sometimes marine fish rain in freshwater and those don't survive.
Yeah.
Or even if they can survive, they can't breed, whatever it is that happens,
Wild.
Yeah. But the question of how did many kinds of animals and plants from where we find these things like North Pole, it's Arctic, and you find that same flower in the South Pole. Like, how did that happen? No land bridge can explain that one.
Yeah.
No bird, I don't think, is going to fly from the Arctic to the Antarctic.
They could waddle all the way there.
All right. I think that's it for the book report for this week.
That's great stuff. God
Yeah.
dang it. That is a good book.
It is really good.
Well, I appreciate it.
It's going to be 20 parts long, folks.
Yeah, it's a long one. That's all right.
Yeah.
Who cares? We got plenty of time. We're not running out of numbers.
We're not running out of future podcasts.
Future podcasts. Okay. We'll be right back for the final segment. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, the final segment. Fastest 2 hours in podcasting. Oh, boys and girls. We got news
Sands
stories.
of time implies that it's the same amount of time every time. But sometimes it seems really fast.
It did.
I think gravity works differently sometimes in the tangent cube of science.
Sometimes the sand grains get smaller. It just happens. We got news stories. We got one-up boxes. Nope, that's not the button. I still haven't labeled these buttons yet.
Yeah, that's not it either.
I know the one button that I really need. I know where that one is.
Okay, yeah.
Scene 3, top left button.
Okay. Good deal. Well, since you're hitting it, should we go ahead and do it? Space Weather News, ladies and gentlemen. From spaceweather.com. Far side sunspots. 2 large sunspot groups are transiting the far side of the sun. We know because NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory is detecting their helioseismic echoes. The sun's rotation will turn them toward Earth about a week from now. Also, sunspot count hits a 9-year high. In a continued sign of strength for solar cycle 25, sunspot counts just hit a 9-year high. There's a plot from NOAA that shows how the monthly sunspot number skyrocketed in January of 2023. The monthly sunspot number of 144 in January 2020, that's actually a 144, in January 2023 was only percentage points away from topping the previous solar cycle, 24, which peaked in February 2014 with a monthly value of 146. Originally, forecasters thought solar cycle 25 would be about the same as solar cycle 24, one of the weakest solar cycles in a century. But current trends suggest solar cycle 25 will surpass that low threshold at least. Solar maximum is not expected until 2024 or 2025, so it has plenty of time to strengthen even further and perhaps exceed solar cycle 24.
Dude. So a solar eclipse is happening possibly when the solar maximum is reached. Right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's definitely going to be a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy if like a coronal mass ejection happened. It was like coming at us, but it was like, you're the moon, the shield moon just like gets right in there, takes out the Chinese freaking space station on the other side.
Well, it'll definitely make the corona around the eclipse really awesome because it'll be in the middle of the maximum. It'll be really active. Right. Yeah. Current conditions, solar wind speed.
My idea was cooler.
Yeah, your idea is definitely cooler. It could actually destroy the moon.
Yeah, just blow up the backside of the moon.
Yeah. Current conditions, solar wind speed is 316.7 kilometers per second. The density is 4.51 protons per cubic centimeter. Sunspot number right now is 74. The neutron count is 1.6% above the space age average, which is pretty low. KP index right now is 3, which is quiet, but the 24-hour max was 3.33, which is also quiet.
That's what the moon was brought here for. Sun shield.
It's a sun shield.
And it's timed.
Yeah.
It was like made the right size It was put just far away, made the right density so it could be just right there. And then
But it only blocks it for like that little place.
I know it was timed for the solar cycles. That's my new
I'm
theory.
saying, like, if the sun does something crazy, deadly, and aims it at the Earth, then everybody in the path of totality will survive. There'll be this band, but all the rest of the world will be destroyed. It's it's a small shadow.
That's, it's like when you wear your shades on the beach.
Yeah.
This part and this part gets burned.
Yeah, that's right.
But you got coon eyes. You're okay. Genius.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. I got a couple stories.
I also have a story.
Oh, you can go ahead and do yours.
You want me to do mine?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm sure many of you have seen this. I know it was going around in the Discord, and I saw it going around on Twitter. But I'll just get this from phys.org, physics website. A team of researchers affiliated with several institutions in Spain, working with 2 colleagues from France and another from Germany, has discovered an obsidian hand axe making workshop from 1.2 million years ago in the Awash Valley in Ethiopia. In their paper published in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, the group describes where the hand axes were found and their condition and their age. The Stone Age lasted from approximately 2.6 million years ago to approximately 3300 BCE when the Bronze Age began. Historians generally break the era down into the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic periods. Prior research has shown that napping workshops appeared sometime during the Middle Pleistocene in Europe, approximately 774 to 129,000 years ago. That's a pretty big...
Wow.
Such workshops developed as tool making evolved into a skill. Individuals who developed such skills worked together in workshops to crank out enough of whatever tools were needed by those in the general area. One such tool was the hand axe, which could be used for chopping or as a weapon. Hand axes were made by chipping bits off of a stone to make a sharp edge. They were not attached to anything. They were simply held in the hand when in use.
I disagree.
I do too.
Well, I disagree about the hand axe itself. You can get a sharp stone without chipping bits off the edge.
Yeah.
The chipping of the bits off the edge is to strengthen the sharp edge.
Oh, okay.
Because if you, especially with obsidian, if you just break obsidian, every edge is sharp.
Yeah, that's right.
But they're incredibly sharp, but they're weak. Mm-hmm. So chipping the edge.
They would be good for like fine work, like maybe filleting or something. But slicing through meat, right, would be okay. But
yeah,
if you want to skin something or you want to chop wood or whatever, you need a stronger edge.
You have to blunt the edge a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're trying to make paper cuts and you don't have paper,
yeah.
If you need to shave,
it's just yeah. You could probably shave with a clean break of obsidian.
Okay, so they were not attached to anything. They were simply held in the hand. The stones used were typically flint or, in latter times, obsidian, a type of volcanic glass. Obsidian, even in modern times, is considered a difficult material to work with because it is so rough on the hands. In this new effort, the researchers have found evidence of an obsidian hand axe napping workshop established far earlier than one has ever been seen before. The researchers were working at the Melka Kuntur dig site when they found a hand axe buried in a layer of sediment. And they soon found more, and they found 578 in all.
God.
And all but 3 of them were made of obsidian. Dating of the material around the axes showed them to be from approximately 1.2 million years ago.
That's crazy.
Study of the axes showed them all to have been crafted in like manner, indicating that the researchers had found an ancient napping workshop. The find marks the oldest known example of such a workshop and the first of its kind not in Europe. The researchers note that the work was done so long ago that they are not even able to identify the hominids that made them.
Oh, man, that is cool, dude. That's cool. All right, I got to follow up for that one.
Okay.
I had the other one pulled up. So I'm not going to read the whole story, but Neanderthals hunted straight-tusked elephants 125,000 years ago. Do you know about this straight tusked elephant?
I don't know.
I had not heard of it, but it's way
Doesn't
bigger
look
than.
straight.
No, the tusks are definitely not straight.
Okay, but that's a huge
It's
elephant.
huge.
Yeah, that's massive.
They're way bigger than the mammoths and stuff. They're the biggest ones. Straight tusked elephants. Paleoloxodon antiquus. I don't know. They were the largest terrestrial mammals of the Pleistocene epoch, present in Europe and Western Asia between 800,000 and 100,000 years ago. A new analysis of 125,000-year-old bones of straight-tusked elephants from ancient lake deposits in Germany shows that hunting of these enormous animals was part of the cultural repertoire of the Neanderthals there over 2,000 years, many dozens of generations.
2,000 or 200,000? How long?
Over a period of 2,000 years.
Okay.
They were hunting these elephants in this area in Germany.
That's not very long, but okay.
No.
Yeah. I mean, well, on the other hand, it is a long
It's
time.
a long time.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Straight-tusked elephants are among the most powerful proboscideans that have ever lived. The animals had a very wide head and extremely long tusks and were roughly 3 times larger than that of living Asian elephants, twice that of African ones, and also much larger than woolly mammoths.
Wow.
Estimates of maximum shoulder height vary from 3 to 4.2 meters, or 10 to 14 feet, and a body mass from 4.5 to 13 tons for females and males, respectively. 13 tons. Damn. Anyways, I find this interesting. I did not realize how much, like, you know, the tool making from. I didn't realize that these other hominids were doing so much. I had another story like a couple of weeks ago that they like made canoes.
Yeah. Yeah, they
made boats.
It seems like they're
discovering more and more technologies.
It's being more and more accepted that they were pretty advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
They
all.
weren't
Just
just
like these dudes were hunting these gigantic elephants.
Yeah.
Holy crap! Surely with obsidian.
And only eating the left front leg.
That's right. Og's cookbook.
Og's cookbook.
Never, can't go wrong. Don't eat those right legs. They're not any good. Okay, so my other story is also just short. Just going to give you a little bit of it. It's from Ancient Origins. Giant 7-foot sword and mirror for demon slaying found in a Japan tomb.
All right.
And I
Finally,
believe,
we found the demon slaying mirror.
yes. Researchers in Japan were excavating an ancient Kofun burial mound. I think those are the key shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they found an enormous shield-shaped bronze mirror and a giant 7-foot sword, the largest that have ever been discovered on the island. On January 25th, researchers from the incredibly long-named institute announced unprecedented and exciting new discoveries. A professor who is a director of another long-named place who advised the excavation said that the team was excavating Japan's largest round Kofun burial mound, the Tomio Maruyama, that was created in the second half of the 4th century AD. Buried in clay at the very center of the ancient tomb and placed over the deceased body, the very unusual giant sword and mirror were recovered. The Tomio Maruyama Kofun has been under excavation since 2018. This year, researchers explored the Tsukuridashi, a raised section at the center of the burial mound.
So they're keyhole shaped,
Okay.
right? Not key shaped.
Yeah, they're keyhole shaped.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. So they were exploring in 2008, or this year, researchers explored the Tsukuridashi, a raised section at the center of the burial mound. The first major discovery came in the form of an enormous 5-meter or 16.4 foot long wooden coffin.
Whoa.
Then, buried in clay covering the coffin, the archaeologists identified the huge 7-foot iron sword and shield-shaped bronze mirror.
Clearly they're ceremonial, right? Come on.
And then the rest of the story talks about how this, the mirror and like the significance of the mirror and like all this stuff. And they don't ever mention, again, the giant 16-foot coffin. 16.4-foot coffin and a 7-foot sword.
Do not
bro.
look into the mirror. That's my advice. The demon will transfer into your body, and then you will use the sword to take over the world. Sorry. I know you're being serious about the giant coffin and that, yeah.
I agree with you. Don't look in the mirror. The mirror was 2 feet long. It's a bronze mirror.
Oh, that's amazing.
Heavily decorated with complex interweaving patterns. Its surface is described as the largest of any bronze mirror found at an archaeological site in Japan. Most often, bronze mirrors from ancient Japan are round, but this one is different in that it is shield-shaped. This is
So
why
it's like a great shield, like a tower shield or something?
it's like this right here. It's like a tombstone,
I
right?
see.
Like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
widened.
yeah.
It's tapered, but it's round on the top. But yeah, dude, I'm saying.
Well, the other interesting, I mean, Japan has these, there's quite a few of those Kofun sites.
Oh yeah,
And they're like well respected.
Yeah.
You can see them. There's this massive city.
Yeah.
And right in the middle is this square of just green. And then there's this keyhole shape.
yeah, they're so cool.
And they've just been preserved and honored,
No. The demons are
demon-
buried there.
That's right.
So that
Okay.
no one goes.
They have been preserved through fear.
That's
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're
and
right.
long ago it was known that the giants were buried there.
Slayed the demons and trapped them in their shields. And then, yes, that's right. So you just leave that spot alone.
Yeah. Fools.
That's how you,
It's
yes,
archaeology.
clearly the keyhole is this is the entrance to the underworld. It's you unlock hell. That's
The guy
great
writing
stuff.
the story died while writing it. He right after he said the thing about the coffin, and then somebody else just talked about the mirror for the rest of the story.
Wow. That's great stuff.
Perfect
Yes.
news stories for today's episode.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a bunch of one-up boxes, and
Yes.
first, I would like to say, what's up, Chris? Thank you so much for the awesome super dry swag.
Yeah, he sent us a bunch of super dry stuff. Let me read the note here real quick. We got a bunch of notes.
Did I say swag? I meant swag.
Swag. So it says, Kyle, Russ, and Laura, I hope you like the super dry t-shirts I picked out and that they all fit okay, as God only knows how we'd return them. Guys, I will never forget the amazing time we all had in Egypt together, right? So Chris was on the last Egypt trip. That really was the most epic adventure I've ever been on, with so many cool and smart people to talk to, or having the most amazing mind-expanding chats over beers in the evening. And Marty never fails to not come out with some great UFO knowledge. Here's to Peru. That's got to be my next trip.
Yes.
I'd like to shout out to the green bus, and especially to the back of the bus. Here's our future adventures together, guys. Peace and love from the UK, Chris, and of course, Snacks!
Thanks, bro. Yeah, the shirts are awesome.
Yes,
I
they're
haven't
great.
seen Laura's shirts yet. She snaked them right out of
Yeah,
that box.
yeah.
She got her shirts. But yeah, this
I really appreciate the super dry. I've been
Dude, I've
thinking
been
I need
rocking
new
it.
t-shirts.
I'm rocking it right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
on the episode. So
That's one of them.
I
for
like
sure.
I like the green one too, and
Yeah.
I'll try those polos. But
Yeah. Oh, I'll wear the polos. bro.
I know, yeah. We got to give some to the watcher too.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to get some of the watcher.
he's definitely a polo guy.
Shannon, thank you for the one-up box full of snakes and trinkets, stuff for the kids, stuff for Laura. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Shannon always sends a bunch of cool little things in there, and I'll see you in Turkey. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Also, while we're at this, we're idiots.
Are we?
Yeah. Laura pointed this out. This is a phone holder.
Yeah. It's phone or vape or iPad holder. That's what we were told. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All I heard was the vape or pen part.
Yeah, pin. Oh, you're right. Pin, vape, phone, whatever.
It's
Yes.
just like, dude, this actually works great as a phone holder.
Do you really want a golden Cepha?
I love this
holding your phone.
Anyways, moving on.
We also got beers.
Oh, yeah.
Note from that says ITM snakes. Oh, thank you for your courage, buddy.
Yeah.
A recent drop at my local watering hole reminded me of you guys. I appreciate the deep dives you do into alternative views of human history. Every new idea or piece of evidence I learn about makes me yearn for answers that much more. I've managed to hit my girlfriend in the mouth, but I'm still working on my brother. Enjoy the dank brews from Chris. Thank you, buddy. Another Chris.
Snake beers.
Yes, snake beers. And one more.
Oh, thanks, dude.
This one, John.
That's good. You want to try it?
Yes. John wrote a book. John, why did you have to write a book? Look at this. Look at this. What is going on here, buddy? At least it's not double-sided. Okay. Salutations, serpent siblings. This is John from the Discord and Patreon. Feel free to dox me.
What's up, bro?
Corresponding with you. I hope this novella letter finds you in the whole, so at least he admits it, finds you in the whole serpent den, happy, healthy, and hearty. First, let me just extend my great thanks to you both for all of the effort that goes into making this podcast happen. Your work, dedication, curiosity, inquisitivity, musicality, etc. is a gift that resides prominently in my life, and I'm sure many others in the larger Snake fam would say the same.
Thanks,
Well, thank
buddy.
you, man. This letter accompanies a gift for you, brothers, which is enclosed in the 1-Up box. Where's the, do we have the, we just don't know where it is. The 1-Up sound.
The button?
Yeah.
All right.
It's okay. It's on your side, right? It's got to be.
Well, they're...
Yeah.
You're gonna be hold.
Damn it.
Life.
Maybe it's not in there.
What? Oh, I know what's going on.
It's not in the setup, is it? It's okay.
dang it.
It's hey. It's all right.
It's not okay.
Relax. Oh yeah, I'll keep reading. So this letter accompanies a gift for you, brothers, which is enclosed in the 1-Up box. As you will see, it is directly inspired by the $50 Dynasty song Eternum, one of my favorite songs on the masterfully done album Procession.
Thank you, buddy.
Kyle's music has long acted as the soundtrack behind the Brothers of the Serpent podcast, but with this album, there it is. But with this album, it feels like something more closely approaching a full musical score. And the haunting lyrics of Eternum resonate with me as something deeply human and true. Thank you, Kyle, and the other musicians in $50 Dynasty for creating this gift for the world to have and share.
Wow, that's cool, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Man, I love Eternum too, bro.
Yes,
Cheers.
I do. So he sent us the thing with the lyrics inscribed on it with a background
canvas.
of the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's of course about the sands of time.
Yeah, the ending lyrics.
Yes, of Eternum.
It's cool, man.
Under the sands. All right, third paragraph of this book. A couple thoughts in passing regarding the change of the show format. I will admit, I was first not in favor of it. I liked the slow wind-up
merry.
that came from the casual conversation, news stories, rock and roll, and agricultural updates preceding the deep dives into the topics. However, I've come around to the new format and find it equally pleasing to have that bit as a nice wind down from the 30% brain expansion that balloons out right from the start now. Not to mention, I can now begin my workouts with the simple press of the play button.
Wait. Are you working?
He might be workout guy.
We found him.
Paragraph 4, dragon houses. The so-called dragon houses found exclusively on the Greek island of something at high altitudes, built in a style unique from other megalithic bronze and Iron Age chambers, by an as yet unidentified people, they could be fallout shelters from cosmic impacts or infall, or perhaps from extreme solar activity. The circular openings in the roofers of many of these structures suggest that they may have also served as astronomical observatories. Intriguingly, I read somewhere that according to ancient local tradition, the word dragon did not only refer to the mythical beast, but to any person with superhuman powers. So maybe another way station for the Apkallu as they traveled across the world to spread their knowledge. Are you looking up dragon houses?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I have seen some pictures of those. That was really cool.
Oh.
Speaking of extreme solar activity, have you considered asking Dr. Robert Schoch to come on the podcast to discuss his alternative theory that solar activity, CMEs, flares, plasma ejections, supernovas, etc., is the cause of the cataclysm at the end of the Younger Dryas? As Schoch posits, it was the extreme burst of electromagnetic activity that led to the huge jump in average global temperatures 11,600 years ago that truly ended the last ice age, though he also believes the Younger Dryas might have been kicked off 12,800 years ago by the same cause. While I still hold the comet impact airburst swarm concept to be the most convincing, the contrast between the drop in temperatures at the start of the Younger Dryas with the rise at the end seem to point to two different causes. Geology. Specifically, the geology of the megalithic blocks used in the construction of the structures at the Giza Plateau and the accompanying erosion of the same. You have mentioned before the benefit that would come from a thorough scientific analysis of the weathering seen on the stone. It is hard science disciplines like geology versus the interpretation-based liberal arts discipline of archaeology that I feel will prove decisive in the overturning of orthodox paradigms. It would be interesting to hear Schoch's impressions of those most ancient granite blocks you found in Karnak and the Sphinx Temple. Or really any professional or academic geologist willing to venture a realistic guess of the date ranges. Surely geologists must have a standard formula to determine the rate of erosion for stone, be it granite or limestone, which can account for factors such as density and composition. Let's ferret that rock guy or gal out and get them on your show. Well, we had the small brain geologist on our show. He declined to give a date that was any more precise than very old, and that's because there's too many variables.
There's too many variables.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's like if it's in the shade, if it was buried, if it,
Yeah.
Was there...
And then the older it gets, the more variables there are
course.
because the climate begins to change as you go back in time and shift into different things. And then you don't know where it was. Like if it's been moved by humans, which it clearly was because it was clearly a block. And the Egyptians and possibly previous peoples reused stuff. So you don't know where it could have been sitting in the bottom of a river for a long time. You just don't know. One thing he did say was one of the first things he thought of was fire damage,
which could rapidly accelerate
cause spalling and But then you wonder like what kind of fire damage, like fire pit fire damage or dragon fire. Right, exactly. That's what I thought too. Okay. So moving on, I wanted to share a revelation that came to me in the timeless midst of a shroom-induced trance that I experienced on the winter solstice. A vision came through to me that the entire cosmos and everything in it is one immeasurable organism, a single all-encompassing entity comprised of trillions upon trillions of autonomous systems from the molecular on up to the galactic. Systems within systems. The ultimate objective for humanity should be to spin up or activate the divinity that resides within us, and thus convert to a higher state of being or of consciousness that can harmonize with the rest of this great living conscious organism. This feeling of, are you saying we need to raise our vibrations? That's what it sounds like he's saying. This feeling of resonance, of tuning oneself to a harmonic came through very clear. Yeah, he's definitely talking about raising our vibrations. We need to spin ourselves up. The sound and the vision of a cosmic organ dancing with innumerable glittering lights. What we must look for are the through lines that can help us activate ourselves and in turn activate the whole. There are various ways to activate or connect to this greater immaterial realm of consciousness, and it occurred to me that one of these is the careful, ritualistic observance of the cosmos and astronomical alignments here on Earth. The impression I felt was that doing so is a way of syncing up the entire system, tuning the instrument or engine or whatever analogy we wish to use. Being present and witnessing these moments in time and space sends a signal out to the universe that we are here and all is well. A cosmic alignment on the greatest of scales, and a way of connecting or reconnecting, of being witness to it all, pure aliveness where eternity lies. It seems that our ancient ancestors with their old ways understood this fundamentally and lived closer to this liminal state. Realizing our interconnectedness with all things, striving for a state of beingness that exists forever in the never-ending and never-starting moment is essential. It brings with it the realization that nothing truly dies but merely changes form. All things changing and in transition all at once. Moving beyond the false concept of the ego as selfhood. Seeing that the true nature of our agency is so much more and has become a great sense of comfort and support that utterly banishes fear. Okay, I could go on rambling in semi-coherent fashion, so I will end it there. Let me close with a suggestion for a future book report, The Immortality Key.
Oh, man.
I'm currently 4 chapters in and can attest it's chock full of snaky information.
It's good.
While the focus is on the possible role of psychedelics in early religion, and specifically the early forms of pagan sacrament and the Christian Eucharist, it ultimately is an exploration of what might be the world's oldest religion with no name, and the custodial forces attempt to control and suppress it. A little Bramley-esque, if you will.
Yeah.
Doing a report on the Immortality Key would also allow you to continue to procrastinate on the ever-elusive Hamlet's Mill book report. Well, that's all for now. Merry Christmas, blessed Yule, and a happy and prosperous New Year to you. Party on, Snake Bros, your serpent sibling, John. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, Immortality Key is a good one. There, can't remember if the author did an audiobook. I know they produced their own audiobook.
I'm sure there's an audiobook version.
I mean,
that's probably why I won't be.
That's what I
doing
listened to.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We could do the kind of book report where we basically both go through the book several
in
times
detail
and then we
and then just do a show on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't.
It's
I'm not
totally
gonna be
worth
reading
it.
giant chunks from
It's
it. Yeah.
definitely worth doing. We should do that.
Okay.
It's cool.
Okay.
Have you read it yet?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah, it's a good one. Awesome. Well, appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah. Well, we have tons of emails, but we're out of time. So we got producers.
We have one producer.
Well, we have Patreon
Cortes
producers
Studio.
as well. Yes, Cortes Studio.
$100.
Thank you so much, executive producer.
Thank you.
And then with the Patreon producers, I know we're a little late on this one, but it's not too bad. So Matt Shy and Peter Shell are executive producers from Patreon this month, and then Daniel Gandy and Frank M are associate executive producers for this month. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show and everybody else on Patreon. We really appreciate it. We got lots of stuff planned. So the Cosmic Summit is coming up. We've talked about this a bit before. I will be doing a presentation there, a short one. Most of you guys might have seen it already because we did it on the show, but it's going to be a short, abridged version of the unfinished presentation. But lots of cool people are going to be there. Lots of scientists from the Comet Research Group are going to be there. Randall's going to be there. Ben from Uncharted X is going to be there. Jimmy, of course, Jahan James. It's going to be awesome. Kyle's going to be the janitor.
Yep. Sweeping them floors.
Yeah. So it is sold out.
Making sure the beers are ice cold.
So the tickets to attend physically are sold out. But I mean, you can always get on the waiting list because people do drop out, and it always happens. Every trip we've done, it fills up and then people drop out, and sometimes you can get a last minute seat.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, you can also get it on. You can get a streamed version of it.
Yeah, the HowTube, they're streaming it on HowTube, and you should go. Russ will have an affiliate link. I don't know if you have it yet.
I don't have it yet.
But yeah, if you're gonna pay for the live stream, Russ will get an affiliate link. When we get that, we'll let you know what it is.
I can put it in the show notes here, yes, and it'll be up on the website or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you sign up, through the affiliate.
So you buy the live stream through his affiliate link, and he gets a cut of that.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. And I think it's like $50.
Yeah, the live
for
stream
2 days.
Price, yeah.
And it's basically like all day for 2 days. And I think then you have access to the video afterwards and all that. So you can watch it at your leisure.
Yeah.
Turkey.
It's now 2 weeks, so there's 2 different trips, back to back, basically. Both of them are completely sold out, but again, people always drop out as we get closer to the trip, and they for whatever reason, people can't go or they just don't pay or whatever. So seats will come available. So get on the waiting list if you're interested.
Yeah, it's
or even mildly interested. You can get on the waiting list and you'll get notified if a spot opens. So, and then you can make the choice.
Go to unchartedx.com for the details on that trip. And then after that, we're doing geese.
What?
Turkey and then geese.
I thought the ducks were first. Because it's duck, goose.
We're going to duck twice. And then we're going to geese.
Right. That's right. I got it. It took me a while.
This is what Ty did this to me, dude. He's like, he tells me, he's like, oh yeah, me and Lise we're going out of town about the same time. I'm like, really? Where are y'all going? Geese. I'm just like, it took me a while. I was just like, what?
I heard geese is beautiful this time of year.
Yeah,
we were Greece.
Yeah, we were. Then the turkey puns, they were terrible. It was just like turkey puns for the next 15 minutes. There's like silence on the phone. We're talking on the phone, and then it's like, I can't wait to eat my first meal in Turkey.
Yeah,
I'm gonna gobble it up. It's like, and then you just wait.
Right. Yeah. Rowan, Randall's brother, told me that he was like, I don't think you should call it the turkey trip. It sounds like you're going to be having like a bunch of Thanksgiving dinners. And I'm like, you're right. This is not a foodie trip.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait. When I get there, I'm gonna call Ty. And it's gonna be a turkey call.
God. You should see yourself out. That one, you should just leave. That's how you're supposed to end those really bad ones.
Okay,
Like, I'll see myself out.
I can't drop this mic. It's
got
floating.
its own boom. Try to drop it.
Yeah. Bad puns and beers await us.
I never got to try this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Dude, I love it when people send beers.
Yeah.
That's like, and shirts.
Yeah. And trinkets.
And trinkets.
Yeah.
And cephas.
Cephas. Golden cephas.
But you guys know, I mean, y'all know. I love beers the most.
Yeah.
It's true.
This was also
Yeah, those are
this was a
awesome.
one-up gift from History Shift. Never used now because I quit smoking.
History Shift, I thought Ann sent that
Did
too.
Ann send it? Maybe she did. I don't know.
think
I
so.
can't keep track, but I thought History Shift sent us this.
He sent us all the stone pyramids.
Yeah, you're right. I'm probably wrong.
Anyways, y'all
If it
are
was
awesome.
you, Ann, I'm sorry.
We love you.
Yes. BrothersOfTheSerpent.com for all the podcast stuff. By the way, I've been working on that on the website thing. New things are coming. Hopefully, we'll see. Yeah, we should get an updated version of the website. That's what I've been working on, so we'll see what happens. And then if you want to email us, I have a ton. We're going to have to do another listener communications episode because we're so far behind already.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brothers of the
Let's
Serpent
do it.
at gmail.com. Send us emails. I read everything that comes into the email. I read everything from you guys. I can't read them all on the show, but I do read all the emails. And I know I have a bunch to respond to. I will get to you. If you've sent me something and I need to respond to it in text, I will try. But just be patient because there's a lot of them. But yeah, brothersoftheserpent at gmail.com, brothersoftheserpent.com. And of course, thank you all for supporting the show. We love you guys.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.